kids are asleep, I can talk about optics. I'll be fairly brief today. I've got two new reflex red dot sights to look at. These come from a company called Shield Sights. I have talked about them a little bit in my SHOT Show overview, and I finally got hooked up with them, and they sent me a couple of sights. So it's very exciting. I liked what they had to offer, and their take on, so a little bit of history. Shield has been making reflex red dot sights for a long time, since I think mid-80s, I want to say. I think they had it somewhere in a box or somewhere when they started doing this. Established 1986, yeah, mid-80s. And so they are their original site called SMS, Shield Mini Site. It's they OEM'd it for a bunch of people. The most common, I think, was original Trigicon reflex site before they started making RMR. And then the J-Point is a Shield, so they've been at it for a while. And they have three other models, one called RMS, which is really tiny sight, primarily designed for pistols. I've got one of those. That one really got me excited. They have the SIS, which looks a little bit like this, and that's sort of a competitor to the Aimpoint Micro, that kind of stuff. It is notable because in some tryouts with the British military, they actually managed to beat Aimpoint Micro, primarily on reliability. As the rumor goes, situations where the Aimpoint would basically be destroyed, the SIS, the CQS, pardon me, close quarter sight, was basically just kept on ticking. And now they've got a new version of it called the SIS, which stands for switchable interface sight. This one allows for different reticles and things like that, and promises the same basic reliability. So looks very rugged, and they've supplied a lot of these. So the miniature sight they've got just to the military, they've got about 15,000 supplied, and of the slightly larger, more rugged one, primarily used for rifles, carbines, shotguns, that kind of stuff, they've got, I think, 50,000 or so deployed. So there are a few. I mean, it's not an insignificant number at all. Anyhow, what I like and why did I get all excited about them when I saw them at SHOT? The RMS, the tiny sight that goes on pistols, is extremely low. This is the lowest base on a sight I have seen yet. There is a small rear notch integrated, so I can use this. I can just hook this, set this up with the front sight and use this as a rear sight. But this thing is so low that you can probably, if you're so inclined, you can probably call witness with the regular sights, even without going with tall ones. And sitting so low, it's kind of nice. It's lowest. It is the lowest profile pistol mountable reflex sight I have seen to date. The battery comes in from the bottom, but to replace the battery, you don't have to yank the whole sight off. The battery is sitting in a little tray that kind of holds the battery from the sides, and once the sight is mounted, you can just push the tray out. If you want to replace the battery, you don't need to lose zero, which I think is very nice. Not only is it very low, but also you don't lose zero. The flip side of having the battery open like this on the bottom is I don't think it is as watertight. What some other sites like Doppler and others who use a bottom-mounted battery do, they put in a little gasket there to sort of seal the seam between the sight and mount. I don't think these guys are doing it. I might experiment with it, but we'll see. We'll see if it gives me any trouble. The way it's machined, the tolerances look tight, everything is nice and smooth. I don't think I'll have any issues. So we'll see. This specific one comes with an 8 MOA dot, which is just right for me. It'll go on my 9mm. I like nice large dot for speed, and and I can use the edge to aim, so it's reasonably accurate. But basically, it's just the automatic brightness adjustment, no buttons, nothing, covers. You put it on your gun, bring it up to aim, the dot is there. There's nothing to press, nothing to adjust, nothing to think about. you sight it in and you're done. Nice, simple, and once again, this is the lowest profile mini reflex sight I have seen yet. Right, so that's kind of cool. Now, moving on to the SIS. So this thing looks beefy, and it looks beefy because it is beefy. The screen, the lens, if you want to look at it, so these are here are the two sides, side by side. Okay, the lens on these is more or less the same size. I think they use more or less the same lens. And what is a little different from most others, it's a polymer lens. It's not a glass lens, right? In terms of optical performance, where's the battery? In terms of optical performance, a polymer lens has some disadvantages. Light transmissions might be a little bit lower and all that. But for a sight like this, I'm not convinced they care. Aside from that, the biggest disadvantage is that it's probably easier to scratch. It depends on how good your coatings are. The advantage, and a significant advantage, is that because polymer is generally a little bit more flexible and far more shock resistant than glass, it's really difficult to break or shatter or do anything really other than scratch with this screen. Is it a good trade-off? Probably, not necessarily. Remains to be seen. Right, but anyhow, so SIS, switchable interface sight, comes with a Picatinny mount, comes in a nice little box with a couple of risers that allow 3 different heights, right? So right now it sits on a Picatinny base, and between them I can insert single riser like this or double riser like this. So I can have a couple of different sights, and it comes with several sets of screws. What is interesting in this guy is other than the fact that it feels like I can play baseball with it and not damage it, it feels really well built. And I have a fair amount of history with building optical devices, sort of what I do for a living. Excuse me. Bloody hell. It looks and feels rugged. In all fairness, looks and feels rugged does not mean it actually is rugged, so I will test it. But so far I'm pretty impressed with what I see. The battery is in a compartment on one side, and the control buttons are on this side. And the way this works, there's a plus and a minus button. Generally you can just leave it on. It comes with a cover, and leave it on in the auto adjust mode, and it'll just sit there, and the battery can work for a couple of years, I think. And that way, so you don't have to worry about batteries. If you press the plus button, the sight comes on in the medium auto adjust mode. It automatically reacts to ambient illumination and controls the reticle brightness. There are 2 more auto adjust modes, slightly bright and slightly lower. So if you, depending on what your eyes are comfortable with, you can go with any of the auto adjust mode. But if you press the plus button to turn the sight on, it will just come up in the medium mode. So you press it and you're good to go. It also offers a manual adjust mode where there are 12 levels of reticle brightness, right? And the way it works, so you can, if you press the plus button to wake the sight up, it goes in this auto adjust mode, wakes up into this auto adjust mode. If you press the minus button, it wakes up in whatever was the last mode you were operating in it. So for whatever reason you want to set, let's say, I don't know, let's say you want to, sometimes you want it to wake up in a manual mode at some low brightness, you set that up. And when you press the minus button, it will wake up into that mode. Honestly, I generally prefer auto adjust modes. So for me, waking up in auto adjust mode is a nice idea, but this is a very well thought out control interface. I like it. It's easy to press. The buttons are very slightly recessed, so you're not going to press them accidentally. It works fine. The way the housing is shaped, you see there is this little bit of a structure on top. If push comes to shove, I can use this as a rudimentary, very close quarter sight, or because of the way the window is, even with it off, broken, battery dead, whatever else, I can just look through it and use that, just aiming through the window at very close distances. That's probably good enough. However, running out of batteries, unlikely. Like I said, I'm one of those weird guys. Once a year, I go replace the batteries in all my sites. This one is supposed to work for a couple of years. I mean, I turned it on when I got it. I haven't bothered turning it off yet, so I'll just keep it on and see if anything dies. But I do not expect to. As far as which reticles are available, so there are a couple of different schemes. It's got 4 reticles. You can go on the Shield website and take a look. The version that I got is what they call the BDC version, right? So the reticle options are a 2 MOA dot, a 2 MOA dot with a 65 MOA circle. The circle is made up of 1 MOA dots. The BDC reticle, which is basically 3 dots, 2 MOA, below it 1 MOA, and below it another 1 MOA dot. And the way this spacing works, it gives me 6 MOA holdover and 10 MOA holdover. And there is this same BDC reticle surrounded by a 65 MOA circle, the same circle of death that EOTech made famous quite a long time ago. I like the circle, so I'm gonna keep it that way. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that if you have astigmatism, and most people do, and I do, the very small dots don't look like dots. For me, large dots are slightly misshapen, small dots looks like just little stars. So this is what it looks like for me in the SIS side. But I don't think it's going to impede aiming. I haven't shot with this yet, so I'm going to mount in a gun and try and see. It looks reasonable, and like I said, I'm going to keep it with a BDC reticle and a 65 MOA circle. I think that gives me the most flexibility, and we'll see how it pans out. Because of my astigmatism, the dot looks like a little star, so I do not see an empty space between the primary aiming point and the BDC dots, right? But I can still discern where they are, and I think I can still use it for holdover, but it remains to be seen. In principle, I think Shield intended this for rifles, but my first application will be to put it in my 10mm Glock and experiment. And I think having it sit on top of a slide, cycle back and forth, that's probably a pretty good durability test. So I'm gonna start with that. It's gonna live on my Glock for a little bit, and after that I will move it on to an AR-15 and maybe go take a carbon glass, something like that. But anyhow, so that's largely that. I just sort of wanted to get a first look. I'm excited about these. I think these are well-engineered sites that have something different to offer, like products that are not just Me Too products, and these have a reason for existence other than just filling out somebody's product line. And I will report back on how they do for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back with some actual test results.